Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Melanie Tana, and today I'm back talking about Book 10 in the Wheel of Time series, Crossroads of Twilight. So, this book, as I've mentioned before, is known to be the slowest. And for those of you who have not watched my other videos, I do get into spoilers here and just details of things I'm reading through each chapter. So there will be spoilers, but I kind of want to not get fully detailed in this one because a lot of it is build up stuff for later or little tidbits in between of characters I'm not super invested in, and I just want to give the gist, summarizing sort of chapters 12 to the end of book 10. Having finished the book, I can definitely understand and see how this is a build-up book toward the next events in the series, sort of the final events. So, starting off with chapter 12, we are at an Elaine POV. Elaine is using gateways to get supplies during the siege, and in this chapter, Zaida of the Othenmere says, we're gonna leave, they're getting a new mistress of the ships. And so she leaves, they make a bargain to leave a certain amount of windfinders behind, in exchange for a random plot of land, landlocked land, that she wants to be not owned by Andor. Dylan has returned with more heads of houses to help Elaine fight for her throne. These high seats are basically just these young, inexperienced men, which catches Elaine off guard, but it's we'll see what we can do with this. And they come with a bunch of troops, so that helps. In chapter 14, Elaine is dealing with spies and discussing just the day-to-day politics with her high clerk and first lady, and she learns from the wise ones that while pregnant she's going to have a tough time channeling, and some things that can be done to help with her sickness while being pregnant. And this is when she finds out that she's having twins, even though Min has already told us this. They don't remember this tidbit of information, and yeah, she learns that. There's two POVs in chapter 15, starting with Elenia, who is in Aramilla's camp, trying to help Aramilla take the throne on the surface and then do her own shady stuff underneath. And then it jumps over to a perspective called David, or David, and he is Captain Mellor. See, I don't know. And we all know he's shady. We all know he's not to be trusted. He discusses with Xian, about dark friends amongst the noble houses competing for the Lion Throne. Going on with chapter 16, and we are in Egwene's POV. So she's talking with Gareth Brine about how they can't block the Tarvalon supply. He suggests that they're going to have to attack Tarvalon eventually. She doesn't want conflict, so she works with Bayanin to set up negotiations for Elida to resign. We'll see how that works, obviously. In chapter 17, we're still with Egwene. Delana, who's Black Aja, has passed on bad information to Egwene, unbeknownst to her. The grain is infested by weevils, despite the keeping that's been done. And there's an interesting thing mentioned by Egwene. She says it was almost as though Saidar was failing, which I'm like, that's sus. Why isn't it working? Why is basically everyone's grain infested with weevils, which just is disgusting the entire time. Sorry guys, the camera's just gonna be different. I had some technical difficulties. Anyway, it's an interesting thing that to fund the rebel cause, they are using earth channelers in Egwene's camp to create Quain Diar. Is that how I say it? Quain Diar? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, it provides them with the funds that they need to feed the troops and continue in their efforts. And we've seen earlier in the series, Egwene discovers that she's great at channeling with Earth, so she can do this herself. In chapter 18, Swan tells Egwene she doesn't trust Halima, who's known for her massages, and that typically helps Egwene's headaches, but we all know Halima ain't who she appears to be. She's not just a handmaid. And she just has this eerie, constant presence with Egwene that I do not like. But Swan's right. In chapter 19, they're in the hall with the sitters. discussing the giant hole where Shadar Lagoth used to be. They assume that it was the Forsaken, and they know it was both Saidar and Saidin used. I just find it really interesting that they don't know much about it yet. I thought more of it would come to light in this book, but it really hasn't. It's just mostly people reacting to the channeling. There's arguing in the hall about men being used in a circle, men who can channel, right? And Egwene calms things down. She's doing great as the Amberlin, as far as I'm concerned, though she's obviously being misled in some areas. As far as leadership, I think she handles a lot of situations well, and she's really trying not to be their puppet. And I think she's doing a pretty good job. And then there's a proposal for an alliance with the Black Tower, and it is passed in their meeting. In chapter 20, Egwene meets with Aviendha in Teleran Riod, but she's planning a meeting with Elaine. Though Elaine is pregnant, she's having a hard time with a lot of these kinds of things now, so Aviendha goes in her place. And then Egwene has 2 true dreams, and the first one is about Mat. It's I picture it very well. I feel like it could be a really cool scene visually, where Mat is bowling. He's playing the bowls, or however they say it, but he's bowling, right? But the pins he's knocking down, as more keep filling their place, Egwene realizes that the pins are men, and that the pins represent thousands of men. And so it's like the deaths and fates of thousands of men are in Mat's hands. And she also gets the sense that an Illuminator will be involved. And in a previous book, Mat met an Illuminator, and it felt significant, and then it wasn't really connected to that again. But she is important for a reason that only the pattern knows. In her second true dream, she has Shan-Chan related events come up in her mind. One is that Shan-Chan saves her from, I think, falling off a cliff. And then in the second part of that dream, she dreams of the Shan-Chan attacking the White Tower. So she has a sense that that is coming, and that will be an event. But she doesn't really understand how those things are competing, how on one end, like, she'll be saved by a Shan-Chan, on the other, they'll attack the White Tower, especially where she was one of the Damani, or Damon, or however you say it, one of the slaves of the Shan-Chan for a brief time, and has a deep fear of it. So she probably is very much like, no, they're not saving me. They're not getting anywhere near me. Nisao enters her tent when she wakes and creates a weave of secrecy to inform Egwene that Anaya and her warder have been slain. And it at first appears like an accident, like a poisoned something, like they got food poisoning or whatever. But truly it was, after investigation, discovered to be Saidin that did this. So they're like, who the heck messed with our Aes Sedai? Going on to chapter 21, it's none of the main people, but Alviarin is, she travels to the White Tower. She's the keeper for Elaida at the time, but she's been gone for a month. She gets punished by Elaida and removed as the keeper. Elaida assumes she's a dark friend, but doesn't really have proof, so she just kicks her out. And when Alviarin returns to her room, she calls for Missana, who is about to punish her. This is one of the Forsaken, right? When a Myrddraal called Hand of the Shadow appears, and Missana is bound, and Alviarin is marked with protection against, or from, Missana, and she's now called to the job of bringing threats to the Black Aja, to this Myrddraal, to the Dark One. So it was very spooky and cool, and I liked it, even though, again, I just want more of the main cast sometimes. But going on to chapter 22, it's a short chapter. POV is Pavara, and she's meeting with Tarna, who has replaced Alviarin as the keeper, and they come to the conclusion that the Aes Sedai, especially the Reds, have to bond the Ashaman as warders in order to control them. And then they get a message, or they have a message that was from Tovin Ghazal, and they say it's going to change the world. So we'll see what that means later. In chapter 23, we are in Cadsuane's perspective. She is, I think, entertaining to read. Just very sharp and serious in certain ways, and I really like reading her POV sometimes. At this point, the sea folk have left to select a new mistress of the ships. There's mentions in this chapter of Peralus Net. She has those in her hair, if you have read her perspective, you know that she's got the little dangly hair accessories, her ornaments, and she mentions that she knows what most of them do, but not like 3 of them, which I find very interesting, but she has them. Now Nynaeve has her own, and then she discusses with Rand how the Shan-Chan recover well after defeat. There's an interesting thought that Cadsuane has that men who could channel before Sidon was cursed, they were called Aes Sedai, that they and women who could channel were just all Aes Sedai and they worked together. And it's sort of been this interesting separation that she associates Aes Sedai with a woman, that she said it would be like meeting a man called Cadsuane. I just think that's interesting. I also think it's kind of funny in just the perspective of it that Cadsuane calls Rand the boy, because, or that in her perspective, he's called the boy, even though he's like the dragon reborn, and she's trying to help him, but she's condescending, so helpful, right? In chapter 24, we finally get a Rand POV. That's nice. Kind of opens with him worrying about all his girlfriends, even though it seems like most of them can handle themselves. Especially Avienda. I mean, she's one of my favorites, and one of the relationships I felt like actually developed more sensibly between her and Rand. Like, they spend time together, and he tries to talk to her, and she is tasked with teaching him things, and then she falls in love with him. Like, that made sense to me. But, like, he's worrying about all the ladies that love him, and he's like, oh no, they're all gonna die and lose their, and is saying stuff to him in his mind, and it's just like, Rand, get over yourself. Let them make their own choices. It's like The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Come on. Logain and Bashir have arrived. Min has seen in her special visions of futuristic events that there's glory surrounding Logain. And Rand says he can't stop the things that Min has seen, so he's not going to worry about it. I'm kind of curious about the sickness Rand describes after healing Sidon. He still feels the sickness when he channels, and I'm interested to see where that goes and what he explores to fix that, because it's obviously an issue. We get to see Loyal, who's been warning the Steadings that Dark Friends have been using the Waygates, and he informs Rand about the Ashman and Logain bonded to the women. Cadsuane is upset by this information. Rand doesn't want to have contention with the White Tower. He thinks that this is kind of a bad idea. Bashir is worried that someone who raided his stuff is looking for the 3 seals that bind the Dark One's prison. And then the chapter ends with Rand sending Logain and company to make a truce with the Shan-Chan, since he knows he can't really defeat them in battle. Going on to chapter 25, it's a very short chapter. Perrin's camp needs food. They go to So Harbor. He's stressed about Fael, because of course he is. The grain that they want is full of weevils, but they get access to it easily. The people of So Harbor and people in Perrin's group, so makes him believe things are happening, have seen ghosts in So Harbor. And the Aes Sedai are like, what is going on? But Perrin wants to just leave. In chapter 27, the grain is winnowed of weevils, which is cool. The Aes Sedai want to stay and see about this ghost issue that is happening and what can be done about it. And if I'm remembering correctly, there's a scene with Berlin where she, I think, wants to help too, where she knows that Perrin might want to help, but all he's thinking about is Fael. I think Berlin's a very interesting character, very politically savvy, and has actually been quite helpful, but also quite a nuisance and in like people's relationships. But as far as like the political savvy goes, she's got that under control. But Perrin heads back to camp. When he arrives, there are Shido being interrogated with hot coals. And he wants his wife back. So you can bet that Perrin's gonna get involved. This chapter seems most significant. Cover of the book relevant, right? And in this scene, Perrin uses an axe to chop off one of the Shido hands. He's trying to get information about where his wife is, and he threatens all of them that he will cut off their hands and feet and leave them behind if they don't, offer information. And in this moment, even Missima seems frightened by this behavior of Rand's, which might honestly be a win just because Missima's kind of loose cannon, but he himself, reaches too far gone point. And so Perrin goes off to the woods. He meets Elias there, who basically is like, remember how you said you would have to put this axe down if you started to enjoy it? And Perrin has this really interesting discussion about, it's not so much about enjoying it, it's just how he didn't care about the consequences almost. his actions were obviously wrong and obviously messed up, but he still did what he did. Like, he chopped off a person's hand. He had an Aes Sedai seal it, so it just seemed so, not to kill, but to, and not even so much to protect, but because he wanted his wife so badly, he was willing to do whatever. But then he's worried, if I do whatever, will my wife want me back? Will Phil even respect me if I become that man? So in a very cinematic moment, he throws his axe and leaves it in the trunk of an oak tree and abandons it there. The chapter ends with Balwer suggesting that they make an alliance with the Shan-Chan, since they also have a thing against the Shido. In chapter 28, we return to Matt's perspective, where he's traveling with Lucas Show. He's trying to court Tuan. This is the stuff I care about, of course. Not just so much the romance, but Matt. And their little dynamic there. She won't wear the necklace that he gifted her in the beginning. He starts to play stones with her, and they're about evenly matched, so she respects that about him, you know? And then he gives her little gifts. They start doing walks at night, and he brings her a cluster of rosebuds. Over the course of this time, Guinan explains that Shan-Chan marriage ceremony entails that both the man and the woman in this situation, in this type of marriage, the man has to name her as his wife 3 times, and if she does so in return 3 times, I think 3 times, over the course of a year and a day, then they are officially married. And I think it has to be in front of witnesses, but he's like, oh shoot. And the dice start up again, and then there's a moment where Tuan smiles at him and the dice stop, and he's like, oh my gosh, this woman. And it's just funny anyway. But in chapter 29, he takes Tuan shopping. At some point, Guinan gets hurt. She's been stabbed in the back by Rena Emain, who is a Sultan, and has run away. They chase after her, and he can't get to her and stop her. He orders her dead, and he's like, it's still is sorrowful to him to see another woman die at his hand, even though the women who have died at his hand, at least 2 of them were not, they were dark friends, or in this case, gonna hurt his cause, but he still mourns that. And then he notices at the end of the chapter that Tuan is wearing the silk rosebuds he gave her, so his courting is working, and it's cute. Anyway, I don't know if you would want me to say it's cute, but it is. Moving right along, in chapter 30, back with Egwene, there's another Aes Sedai who's killed with Saidin. It's becoming this presence over everyone, and the Aes Sedai are starting to cling to Saidar more. They're a little bit more uncomfortable with the situation. To sort of sum up this chapter, because there's a lot that happens, but I think some of the most important things are that Egwene introduces her plan with the Oath Rod to let Aes Sedai retire ultimately and return amongst the kin and basically age for as long as they need to do what they feel like they need to do to be the channeling women that they need to be and to solve the issues they need to solve. If they live longer, they have a better chance of doing that. And so she introduces that plan, which is startling, I think, but it also connects the kinswomen to the White Tower stronger, and you can't really go against that. If ex-Aes Sedai have a chance to let go of the Oath Rod and live a little longer and pursue their cause a little longer, it's an interesting plan. Compulsion is recommended by Lelaine, and I think it's in dealing with the Ashaman, though I can't remember, and Egwene is like, no, heck no, don't do that. We don't do that. That's not okay. That's manipulative. And there's even a talk brought up about warders who have lost their Aes Sedai being bonded, and Morel comes up, who bonded Lan, and it's just so sad, because even Cadsuane doesn't see Lan's bonding to Nynaeve as her warder as legitimate, given his bonding to Morel before. Egwene stops those headed to the river, to the White Tower. She says, I'm the Amerlin, I need to handle this negotiation, this situation myself. And as she's turned the chain blocking her way, I think through the gate or whatever, she turns it into, wow, I have a hard time with this, Quaindiar. Is that it? Anyway, she feels someone embracing the source. Her boat is struck, and then she wakes up in the White Tower, and the book ends before the prologue. This chapter ends with Egwene wondering who betrayed her, but knowing somebody did, and that's where it's left off. Then the epilogue ends with Rand, of course, Lews Theron's talking to him, and he's feeling his wounds all the time, because of course Rand is, and then it ends with someone informing Rand that the Shan-Chan want Rand to meet with the Daughter of the Nine Moons. And then that is the end of book 10. I hope I did a good enough summary. I hope I can edit this down into a palatable video. But this is where I'm at. I might make another video, maybe my thoughts on some things, but I don't know. I just feel like I'm trying to enjoy it. And this was a little daunting. Like, all of my notes and stuff, kind of exhausting. And I would like to enjoy it a little bit more. And knowing I have 4 books left, that's crazy. I have 4 books left. Knowing that, I really want to just enjoy them, but also understand them and be able to talk about them with you guys. So that's where I'm at. I will continue to make more videos about this, and I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and maybe let me know what you're reading, what you're interested in. Do you like this book? Do you hate it? Whatever. I'm down to hear it. Anyway, have a wonderful day. I'll see you later.